Welcome to Saturday Morning Retro, episode 25. Before we start the show, we want to thank all of our wonderful fans who have supported us. And if you want to show support for the Rated G Network, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/RatedG4Gamers. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Rated G4Gamers. And finally, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. We appreciate all the love. This is Saturday Morning Retro, episode 25, a podcast on the Rated G Network focused on retro gaming and giving ourselves an excuse to play our collection. I'm your host, Dave Rotino, and this is my co-host, Dan, the podcaster formerly known as Classic Robinson.
What's going on, man? You know, I love the new intro where you say it gives us an excuse to play our collection, because we do need an excuse. When you have a large collection, I am not even. I'll be serious. Like, I have over 5,000 games. Right? When you have when you have over 5,000 choices to make, it can be a little overwhelming, and you don't know what you want to play, right? And then you start playing one thing, and then it may be too hard, or you may not be as into it, and then you have to move to the next thing. It's not like when we were kids, where it's like, no, this is it. Like, I got to make this work. I may not be that into it, but I'm going to make myself be into it. Or it may be too hard, but I'm going to get good. Right?
That's how I beat Carno for the NES, or got really far in Deadly Towers. You know, those are, well, I mean, Karnov's a bit of a cult classic maybe, but Deadly Towers is not a good game. I learned to love that game, right? Because it was the one my parents got me. It's the one that I picked out in the store and my parents bought. So I'm like, all right, I gotta make something of this. You know, the other way to really get some hands-on time with your backlog is being sick.
Oh, yeah.
Because no matter what, unless you're on like death's door, me personally, and I think a lot of people can relate, you can always muster up enough energy to turn on your TV and pick up a controller and play a game, right?
Well, just because you're sick doesn't mean like you're paralyzed. Like, you're bored, right? You can still be bored and sick at the same time. I mean, plenty of times I would be home from school.
Sure.
And it'd be like, I'm coughing my brains out, but I'm just sitting here doing nothing.
Right. You know, you're either watching episodes of The Price is Right, or you're playing video games, right? Because who's doing the homework that your mom got from school? No. You do that.
Wait. I'm too sick to do homework. Come on, I can't. I'm sick. I can't look. I can't pay attention to paper. I can't write.
2 + 2? Right? No. But I can press the A button.
I can press the A button. There you go. I can watch TV. I can stare at the TV. I can't stare at a notebook. Come on, man. Come on, Charlie. I don't know why my boss always calls me Charlie, but he says that to everybody. I don't know. I think this is like a reference that goes over my head because I'm not that old. You know, maybe you.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
The only reference to Charlie I know is in the Vietnam War, and if that's the reference, it's not good, because you would be the enemy. But yeah, so I don't know about that one, but
he just says, "Come on, Charlie. Come on, Charlie." I have no idea what he means.
So I do want to apologize to everybody if I sound a little different, still a little stuffed up, but I was able to muster enough energy to finally get on the mics and do this show. So very excited to be here. Very excited to talk about my game this week.
So Dave, we have an awesome show this month. All right. Coming up, we're going to talk Jak and Daxter and Eye of the Beholder, the trilogy. Well, that's going to be a little bit later in the show. But we always start Saturday Morning Retro with this time in gaming history. And I thought it would be a little apropos, since this is episode 25, that we'll talk about the 25th anniversary Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, shoot.
So this month, September 13th, 2010, Nintendo celebrated the 25th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers with the Super Mario Brothers collection for the Wii. I do own the complete, that, you know, not just because remember it came like in a cardboard box with the game and the booklet, right, and all that stuff. So I know if you go to GameStop nowadays, you'll just see the case in the game, but I have the
Right.
whole,
Right.
bundle.
Which was a really cool case. I believe it was like red and gold, right? Had Mario in the
Yes.
middle, 25th anniversary. Like they did a lot of good work with it. I believe I have the game. I don't think I have the full complete package. So that's definitely something I need to get.
Yeah, I got the art book that came with it, right? The
Mm-hmm.
complete package. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky to have that, and there was another the Kirby anniversary package I have
Oh,
as
sure.
well.
Sure, sure.
Right, they had the Kirby anniversary, so I have that for the Wii. But you know, I know when I do this time in game of history, I like to go like way in way back in history. But I mean, this is something, right? I mean, 12 years ago, it was the 25th anniversary. It makes me feel old, right? Because now we're at like the 37th anniversary.
Yeah, yeah, it's
It
crazy.
three,
It's coming up on 40 years. Can you believe
I
it?
know
40
that
years of Mario. Well, 40
man.
years of Super Mario, right?
Super
Technically
Mario
Mario.
Brothers, Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, debuted in
Yeah,
81 in the arcade. But wow, that's wild. And then just a few years later in 2013 was the 30th anniversary. The Year of Luigi came out
yes,
a little bit later, which I think was basing off his appearance in Mario Brothers for that 30th anniversary. But that is wild. That is wild. And now, refresh my memory. Did they do more than just this kind of special Wii collection? Because I feel like
to be
there was
honest,
like
I don't remember. I
okay.
still, I was still sort of, you know, not really. I was just getting back into gaming, right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
a year
Mm-hmm.
prior to this, I got my first
Mm-hmm.
PS3, right? I had two PS3s. I've told that story a million times where I bought it and I didn't think my transaction went through, so I actually went to the Sony store in the city and got
Mm-hmm.
it, and then it came in a mail, so I had two, and I had to sell one to my old boss. It was around the holiday, so I was like, "Hey, I got a
Yep.
PS," and I gave him the Uncharted collection one. It came with Uncharted, and
Yep.
he's
Yep.
like, "Oh, great! I can hold this, and give it to my son for Christmas."
Nice.
So, so I
Nice.
remember. So yeah, so this time I wasn't. I was just really getting back into gaming. I wasn't like fully in, both feet in. I was like dipping
Mm-hmm.
a toe back in.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember what else they had other than this,
It
but I
looks
do
like
remember this though. I do remember
yeah.
this.
I'm looking at the wiki right now. There's the Super Mario All Stars Limited Edition, the 25th anniversary Super Mario Brothers for the Virtual Console. Those are both on the Wii. 25th anniversary Red Edition, right, of the Wii. Then there was some like bundle packs that came with it. Looks like there was a special DSi XL 25th anniversary Red Edition, so that's probably going for a decent amount of money. And a couple of other small things. Looks like there was like some 7-Eleven tie-ins and whatnot. So I think they celebrated appropriately, right? I think it was pretty good. Even just like here's the Wii version 25th anniversary, right, with like an art book and the history and a bunch of stuff. Like, I think that was pretty cool, and I'm really looking forward to see what they do for the 40th anniversary. Right, they got to go bigger and better.
Well, the 40th anniversary, we said what would it be about another 3 years, right, or something? And
I
no,
believe so. If we're going off, if we're
17
going
years,
off
so it'd be 3 years.
1985, so it'd be 2025.
I'm gonna make my first Saturday morning retro prediction ever right now.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
ready?
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be Super Mario Odyssey 2 launching with whatever new console they have, the Super Switch, 3 years from now.
Uh, that is very possible. I could definitely see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah, I could definitely. That's a pretty solid prediction.
So, and
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna. I just hope they call it the Super Switch because they're gonna keep the Switch name. They're gonna ride
Yeah.
this out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
ride this out. So,
Oh, sure.
all right, Dave. The whole one of the other reasons why we started Saturday Morning Retro is to give a little bit more shine to our pickups.
That's right.
So, Dave, you get any good pickups this month?
Oh, I did, Dan. Your most favorite underrated console ever. Oh, I picked up some good stuff, and I have to give
Okay.
some shout outs before I go over these games to Gotham Thrift Thrift Shop. Say that three
Say that
times
10
fast.
times. Say that 10 times fast.
And Ridgewood Thrift, which was funny. I remember a couple episodes ago on the regular show, I was talking about how I was going to the Rammstein concert, and I was going over to my friend's place, and then we were going to go from there the next day or whatever. And long story short, I ended up at a bunch of thrift shops that I didn't think I was going to be at. So shout out to Ridgewood Thrift. Shout out to Gotham Thrift Shop. If you live in the Brooklyn area, or even like Queens or whatever, if you live in the New York area in the 5 boroughs, definitely head down there. They are good people. They have very good games, and most of these games I got for $1. I also want to stress that too. So, So I got a Big Bumpin' for the Xbox, right?
Big Bumpin'.
Yep. I did not have that in the collection. That was the Burger King. That was the Burger King bumper car game. I 3 or 4.
It was one of 3. There was 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, I have all 3 games. I put them. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I put them in my 360 collection technically, because it has that whole 360 Xbox logo and everything, except for it doesn't have the 360. It just has Xbox on it.
Right. Because it came out at like the end of the Xbox, the beginning of the 360 life cycle. So and it was easy enough to like port it or whatever, or make it compatible. So they're like, you can just play it on whatever.
They made it back. Yeah, they made it backwards compatible. But if you look at the packaging and everything, it's all 360 looking.
Yep.
But it's so I put it in my 360 collection.
Yeah,
general consensus from other people I've seen online, and even my app, when I scan it, it all goes into the 360.
360, yeah.
So I would put that in the 360.
I did that too, just to match up the spine coloring, right? Because it's white with like the green, so just to kind of keep it all uniform. So, also got NFL Street 2.
Good
this
game.
This was one of the last. I know they made a Street 3, but it was one of the last EA big games to come out, right? EA, starting with the original SSX, it's the launch title for the PS2. EA made a kind of an offshoot brand or a subsidiary of like EA and EA Sports, EA Big, which was like over-the-top extreme sports, right? And this included the SSX series. This included NBA Street. This included NFL Street, FIFA Street, and maybe like a few other games. So really cool, kind of, backyard football type situation, right? Very kind of arcadey. Feels a little bit like the Blitz series a little bit, but with like, EA's kind of twist on it. ESPN 2K5 for the original Xbox, a classic, the last 2K sports title. Last 2K sports title, because famously or infamously, EA snatched up exclusivity rights to the NFL license, and
this is ESPN in NFL 2K5.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. I was like, okay, I thought you were talking about NBA.
Oh no. That is still going on. Also, Apache Air Assault for the PS3. A bit of a hidden gem, I think. Found that at a pretty good price. Also got a couple SingStar games for the PS3. The original SingStar.
Will you get the mic and actually sing along?
Oh, I have the mics. Oh, I'm good, baby. I'm ready to go.
Along.
I got the little breakout box so you can do the I already have like a much better setup than the SingStar thing. I went out of my way to buy like an official mixer and all that, so I'm good. But this is definitely a nice backup to have, right? If I want to get the videos along with the nice little on-screen display, because I'd say like 90-95% of the songs they have on here, they all come with the music, right? Because I mean, it's a Sony produced product, and then there's the Sony music, so they just get all their artists to be in these games, right? It's very easy, so the licensing is like there's like zero friction, and the original SingStar Plus, and SingStar Volume 2, so added all those to the collection. So very excited.
Nice.
Yeah, very excited to pick those up.
All right.
So how about you, Dan?
I want to say I got a couple of special things coming my way. I thought they would be here by now. They're not, but I'll definitely talk about it next month on the show. Like I got a big game coming to me. All right.
Oh,
a big and a half game. Another game is kind of big, right? But I'll tease that for episode 26.
Okay.
But so big shout out to GameStop, Lukey Games. Definitely a thrift shop. I did not remember the name. It was just a random thrift shop that I came across.
Sure.
And eBay for my pick.
There you go. There you go. It's a nice, it's a nice round selection right there.
And the only game I got for $1 is the first game I'm going to mention. That's Bleeding Edge, and it was $1 at GameStop.
Yeah.
I got for the Xbox. I got for the Xbox One, which is a multiplayer game, like in the vein of like Overwatch and Destiny and all that stuff. So that's why it was that's why it was $1. It was a clearance. Also,
as a
matter of fact, it was like $1.25, I think.
Also, did not do well, and I believe this was the first game to come out of all of Microsoft's big acquisitions. Right there.
Yes.
I don't know now, like 30 plus studios that they have under their belt, but this was like the first one. I was excited for it, but it's okay.
Yeah, it was $1.25, but we'll chalk it up as $1.
Yeah.
Right. Because I did. As a matter of fact, we'll check it up. It's free because I used my $5 coupon for the month.
There you go.
So we were chalking it up as free. I didn't pay anything for it. Deadfall Adventures for the 360. That's a game that was like on a hidden gems list. Reggie from Metal Jesus Rocks. Like Reggie's like a contributor. He talked about having Deadfall, and I thought I had it. Didn't have it. Had to get it on eBay because apparently a lot of stores it's like a semi-hidden gem, and I did pay more than I think it's worth. Not a lot, but like in the $30-ish range. Right?
I've never heard of this game.
It's a first person, like, it's like from what I saw, at least I haven't played it. Think of James Bond, not James Bond, Indiana Jones. First person Indiana Jones with more guns than you would imagine.
Hey, all right, there you go. Bang bang shoot. All right.
Yeah. Is it Indiana Jones shoot him, first person shoot him up, to put it that way. From what I can tell. Again, I haven't played it from what I can tell.
They made a collector's edition out of this.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. Wow, all right. Good deal.
I got King of Fighters 12 for the 360. And I also got what some people call the best, maybe arguably the best fighting game of all time, and it was on IGN's list, not my list. King of Fighters 13, which was on the PS3. So I do have both. I do have both of those games.
I believe that was the last 2D. The last 2D one.
That I can't speak to because I'm a big old school King of Fighters because my friend Brian, he's a big fighting game fan and he loves King of Fighters and we play a lot of the old school ones. We haven't played any of the new ones. Newer modern King of Fighter games. I know whenever he comes to my house, he always wants to go play the old school ones. I've been trying to tell him I may secretly get him a PS5 for Christmas just because I know it's backwards compatible with PS4 so he can play more modern fighting games because that's all he would buy if I did buy it for him. But we'll see about that. Who knows? I did pick up Transformers for the PS2. Now this is not. There were a lot of Transformer games. There was another game called Transformers that came out for the PS3, PSP. This is the Atari made Transformers game for the PS2. Again, also from Radical Reggie did say this was sort of a hidden gem, and he said this is one of the better Transformers games. So I had to pick that up.
Nice.
This is a kind of a pricey game. It's a little bit up there, over 50 or over. Did find it at GameStop for half of that, and that is House of the Dead 2 and 3 for the Wii.
Oh, they're sleeping on that price.
So
don't you just love that? Don't you love that when you go in and you're like, oh, they don't know. I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
And you
guess
just,
what? I got it for $12.99.
It's beautiful.
Complete $12.99. Perfect condition. I picked that up. I got Dave's favorite game. I think you mentioned it in one of the shows that we. Oh yeah, you actually mentioned one show where we were talking about the new Ninja Turtle game that was coming out. next year. I got Turtle Smash Up for the Wii.
Oh,
I got that earlier in the month.
I don't know if that's my favorite. I don't think I said those words.
Yeah, favorite and Turtle Smash Up. I think they were used, maybe not in the same sentence, but in the same conversation.
I mean, favorite probably they were used in the same episode, but you know, you can splice together me saying that, but that is not the original context.
Yeah. It's like I'm sure in the same episode we talked about Fable and Favorite. They were together too, right? In the same episode. Those words.
All right, I'm actually it's funny. I'm looking at the character select screen for this Turtles game. I don't recognize any of the villains besides Shredder.
I haven't played it. I'm sure I would recognize it because I was the biggest Turtle fan. I loved it. I even was happy when I was disappointed and happy when my aunt got me some knockoff turtles from a dollar store. When she, it was like, happy birthday, and got you some Ninja Turtles. I was all excited, and they were like these rubbery things from the dollar store. And I just used them as the
Twiddles. They're toys.
Yeah, I just use them as the Foot Clan, extra Foot Clan members.
There you go. Right. Or, they're like the C team. They're the C team.
Yeah. I was like 9 years old, and I'm like, all right, you guys are gonna be the ones that get beat up, okay? Mm-hmm. So we got that. I got Andretti Racing on the Saturn. Complete actual American Saturn version, long box. I got Final Vendetta, which was that new beat 'em up that came out. I got that from Limited Run. I got that. On the Switch.
That's like the Streets of Rage spiritual successor, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good game. I'll talk more about it in games I've been playing on a regular show. Listen to the next regular show. I mean, I'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. I got Splatoon 3. For the Switch, also awesome game. Got to play it. You should pick that up if you haven't picked that up. And Moving Out for the Switch as well. So brand new.
Team 17 Classic. Yep.
I realized I should pick this up. I have this for other systems, other consoles, but I figured I'll pick this up. Assassin's Creed Black Flag for the PS4, only because when I first got the PS4, I've talked about it to death on the show or early on episodes. I bought Assassin's Creed Black Flag digitally, and what can go wrong digitally did go wrong digitally. It wouldn't let me pass a certain point in the game. I was on the phone with Sony, and I just couldn't pass the boat scene. I couldn't pass it. It wouldn't let me progress.
It was all bugged out. Right.
They had to give me my money back, which is the reason why I hate digital games.
There you go. I think you've kind of come around now with your subscription services and all that. You come back to see the light again.
Well, I figured, just in case, let me just own this game for the PS. I put so much time. I wonder if my save is. I wonder if I still have that save. I mean, we're talking about 2014. I don't know if I still have my save 8 years ago. I gotta check to see if I have my save because I would hate to start this game over. I'm not gonna lie. Also picked up Fire Pro Wrestling World for the PS4.
Nice.
Cookie Mama for the DS complete. Got that at GameStop. Medal of Honor Airborne. Got that at GameStop. You don't see it for the PS3. You don't see a lot of, I have my GameStop that I go to it's in the middle of nowhere, so people aren't catching a train, public transportation to get here. Really, unless you have a car. This is like a local game, truly a local GameStop. Right. And whenever they get anything new, as soon as I walk in the door, they tell me, Dan, we got some new PS3, Xbox 360, 3DS, DS, Wii U games. Check it out. And as soon as I walked in the door, they said, we have Medal of Honor. Do you have this? So I don't have it. I actually had the case, but I didn't have the game. I got the case from a Goodwill. I just took the case. I never bought the game, but
there you go. You kind of piece them together. Yeah.
Yeah, the case was in bad shape, though. I'm not gonna lie, but I figured, maybe if I see the game for cheap, I'll pick it up. Now that I found it for $5.99 at GameStop, I just threw the old case out that I had. I picked up some PS1 games. Lastly, I picked up some PS1 games. I got Soul of the Samurai for the PS1, Hidden Gem, awesome PS1 game. If you're into old PS1 games, because definitely those load screens, going from one part of the level to the next, and obviously, just fighting stance wise, the stick isn't 1-to-1, like it is now, or even with PS2 games. So you have to be into PS1 games. I'm nostalgic for it, so I can deal with that type of stuff. I think it is a hidden gem and pretty awesome. World's Scariest Police Chases.
Wow.
That sounds like a TV show, not a video game, but it was a video game for the PS1.
It was also a TV show. Yeah, it was on Fox.
Really? Well, they made a game out of it. I don't know if this game is made out from the TV show, but
oh yeah, no, 100% based off the TV show. It was at a time when Fox was very sensational,
edgy.
Yes.
Well, that's when they were cool back in those days. Because I love Fox Box growing up. I love the Fox Box.
What was the Fox Box?
It was a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoons. It was like called the Fox Box.
Right.
Right, and they had the cube, and as the cube turned around, it had cartoons on it. Remember the Fox Box?
Right. I do remember that now. Wow, that's crazy.
But all right, just to finish up, I got Hugo, the Evil Mirror. Got that I got that from a thrift shop. Also, don't remember how much I paid for it. It's probably like $5, something like that. Contender also got from. I also got Contender from a thrift shop. I had the second one. I think I used my Lucky points, to get the second one for free, but didn't realize I didn't have the first one. So got the first one, and I got G Police for the PS1. Also, I had the G Police 2, which wasn't called 2. I can't think of the name of it, but I got the second one. I never had the original, so I went and picked that up.
Oh yeah, I actually when I bought when my parents bought me a 3D video card add-on back when you had to have a 2D card and then like a 3D card, like the Voodoo cards were still out. I got a bundle, and it came with a racing game, which was actually really good, and it also came with a copy of G Police on the other PC. So I got to play a 3D accelerated version of G Police, and it's pretty solid.
All right, Dave. Let's get into the triple R. Mm-hmm. All right, this is where we pick a franchise, we pick a game, and we say we either want to remaster it, remake it, or recycle the idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dave, this month, what's your triple R?
Oh, it's a classic. From a company that you know and love, or maybe used to love, and want to love again.
Do I really want to love them again, though?
Yeah, I think you do. Because they got a huge catalog of great games, and that is RC Pro-Am on the original NES, made by, drumroll please, Rare. There's a Rare game.
Well, this will be an Xbox exclusive, okay? All right. Okay.
Well, I mean, like at this point, sure. But, maybe they could work out the rights, right? They did it with GoldenEye, so maybe they could
That's
work
because
out the rights.
Nintendo still owns some of the rights to GoldenEye.
I'm aware. But I want a remake. But I want to preface that I want a remake, but not in the way that you may think. It's not that I need the 4K visuals and the ray tracing and the bloom lighting and the, whatever else. Like, yeah, throw a nice coat of paint on there, back from the NES days. But I just want it to be like expanded out, right? And so maybe it's not so much a remake as like a recycle in a way. Because like the original game, I want to say there was like 20 some odd tracks, right? And you would race around in these little like RC cars, right? And as you go through, there'd be little letters on the track. And if you pick up the letters and you spell out the word, you would upgrade your car, right? And you would keep going. There'd be like little power-ups, permanent power-ups on the track. So you can increase your engine or like your tire traction or like your acceleration. And I liked all that, but it was really just like that, right? And once you get to the end, you get all the trophies. It goes back around to level 1 again, which I think it gets a little bit harder, right? And it kind of just keeps going around those So I want to see a little more variety. I want to see variety in the way that Part 2 had, because I think like Part 2 had like tractor pulls, and among like the regular racing, and there was more like upgradability. You get
Do you
money.
want it to be in that same style or more modern? Do you want it to be like,
Oh, I want it to have that old school feel for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want it to have that old school feel, but with like upgraded graphics and whatnot. But like you could still do it in the same pixel art and the whatever else. The remake really comes in where add some new game types, features, online play, whatever else. Like really kind of beef it up. And I think it'd be awesome because that game was great. You could just pick it up and play. It was like real easy to get into. All right, really fun.
Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go a little bit different. I want a remake of Prince of Persia remake. I want a remake of a remake.
Well, wait a minute. The remake didn't even come out yet.
No, so remember, there was a Prince of Persia game, sort of like a reboot on the PS3, Xbox 360 era. Remember that? Remember it was just Prince of Persia?
Oh, God. So wait a minute. Okay. Yes, I do. I own that game, and it was like every time you fell off a cliff, they would bring you right back on the cliff. You couldn't die. Yeah, I remember that game. I remember that game.
Yeah, I want a remake of that game, but make it better. Okay? That's why you remake it.
You want a remake of the 2009 version?
Yes.
Okay.
Make it better though. Make it better. I don't want to remaster it. I just remake that game the way it should have been made the first place. Okay.
Okay. What was your issue with it? Was it too easy? Was it too bland?
It was too bland and again, shit like falling off and that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't want games to be too difficult though, right?
I don't.
This was a little too far.
Okay, listen. I don't want I want the option of invincibility.
Okay. I see. Right. If there was a toggle, I don't think there was a toggle to turn it off either. Yeah, that was just a core gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, I don't want it to be. I want the option to be invincibility. Let me get to the point where I'm like, all right, fuck it. Let me turn it on. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Super Mario 3D World. Or Land or whatever, the one for the Wii U that got ported to the Switch. World, right?
Yeah. Land was on the 3DS.
I think that's like the perfect example of if you don't make it through a couple of times, they give you the option to be invincible.
Right, but you get the little white catsuit. Yeah.
But it doesn't help you for if you fall off.
Right? You can still die. Yeah. You can still die.
Yeah, you can still die. And there's a level later on in the Bowser world where you have to sort of you're in the lava pit and you have to follow this falling land block that keeps going this way and you never know which way it's going to go, right? And you just got to time it right. And invincibility won't do anything for you other than help you with enemies that are flying around. But I still died a bunch of times even with invincibility, right? So it still gave me that challenge and made it a little bit easier for me.
Okay.
So that's what I want.
Interesting. So yeah, it's not to make things confusing, but Prince of Persia in the late 80s, right? Classic puzzle adventure action game, right? Then Prince of Persia reboot Prince of Persia reboot in the early 2000s, right, for PlayStation, Xbox, and GameCube. That was a whole series. Then another Prince of Persia reboot in 2009, just Prince of Persia, which was a one-off, right? And then there's now a Prince of Persia remake for the old PlayStation 2 one, which has now been infinitely delayed, I think.
Yeah, but that was the remake. Well, I don't even think is it a remake or not a remaster? I think it was a remaster of.
Whatever it is, it's not looking so hot, so they had to get
I think it's
fix the graphics.
I think it's a remaster more than a remake.
Sure.
I don't know if it's a Resident Evil 2 remake
right
game.
But,
I think that's a remastered game.
But yeah, so you want to take the 2009 game, bring it into 2022, which I'm about. I would love to play a freshened up version of that game.
Take that game and make it what it should have been, right? And remember, Assassin's Creed is kind of a recycle, right? Somebody I think they played this game. I think they play this game at Ubisoft. They must, go into board meetings and say, should we remaster, remake, or recycle? And somebody said, let's recycle Prince of Persia and make it Assassin's Creed, right?
Yeah, right? So, yeah.
So, because Assassin's Creed is supposed to be Prince of Persia.
That's right.
I want you to take that 2009 game and remake it the way it should have been done the first time for modern consoles. So, all right, Dave, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to dive deep into our backlog and talk about Jak and Daxter and Eye of the Beholder, the trilogy. All right, Dave, let's dive deep into our backlog and talk about Jak and Daxter and Eye of the Beholder trilogy. Since you're sick and you're not feeling well, you're a little under the weather, I'll let you go first. I'll be nice this time.
It's much appreciated. Yeah, we're flipping the script.
And I'm a little curious too, because I've never even heard of Eye of the Beholder, let alone the trilogy. So tell me all about this game.
Oh man, let me tell you. And I'll tell you how I came across this game. I guess I'll tell that story first, and then I'll give a little backstory to the game, a little bit of info, and then the background on how it came to be and all that. But I remember, I believe it was summer of '96. I think that was right. I think summer of '96. And I was in the mall. My aunt was in town. My aunt was visiting. And it was my birthday. So my aunt's like, all right, look, you want something from the mall, let me know. Keep it under like $20 or whatever. And, let me know. I'll buy it for you. I said, oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Aunt Karen. So I was looking around. I'm like, let me go to like Software Etc. I think it was Software Etc. or Electronics Boutique, one of the two. And I was looking through all the PC games. And I'm like, all right, I got to find something that's under $20, that looks really cool, that'll run on my PC, and that she would buy for me. And I searched, came across this. I'm like, 3 games in one, and it's only $15. Hell yeah. So they like repackaged all this together. And I picked it up, and that's how I fell in love and played the games back in the day. And that's why we're here today. So I'm going back and playing it all over again.
You did tell a story on the regular show. I think it was like
I did. Yes. Okay. So well, there you go. For those of you who don't know, now you know. But this originally came out for the PC in 1990 in North America, developed by Westwood Associates, which would turn into Westwood Studios, which was the company that created the Command & Conquer series, as well as the Dune RTS series and many other games. So this was one of their first titles. It was published by SSI, Strategic Simulations Incorporated, which did, I believe, most, if not all, of the Dungeons and Dragons licensed products for the PC, for the console. SSI was like huge, right? This also came to the Super Nintendo by way of Capcom, came to the Sega CD by way of Sega, and it came to the PC-98 by way of Pony Canyon. So released on the PC, SNES, Sega CD, PC-98, Game Boy Advance, and also the Commodore Amiga. So it definitely got around. It is a dungeon crawler RPG, and I played this on the PC. Right. So this was, for all intents and purposes, a trilogy. It even said so on the first box. It was always meant to be a 3-part series. So the first one came out in 1990. Part 2, The Legend of Dark Moon, was in 91, a year later. And then Assault on Myth-Drannor, the third one in the series, came out in 1993. Something I didn't know Well, I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't really listen to the soundtrack so much. But Yuzo Koshiro, right, which should be pretty familiar because he did the music for ActRaiser, Streets of Rage, Shinobi, among other games, right? Big Sega composer, which they use for a lot of their games. He did the Sega CD and the PC 98 versions. And that's actually kind of funny because the PC version has almost no music, right? Beyond like the beginning and the intro, once you get into the game, really nothing. Sega CD version, oh my god, it's got this like 90s techno soundtrack, which surprisingly works, right? It's really good for what it is, but it's only in the Sega CD version and I think a modified version for PC 98, which I thought was kind of interesting. And parts 1 and 2 were developed by Westwood. The third game was not. This was a time when Westwood, after part 2, it was acquired by Virgin Interactive, right? Remember when Virgin was making video games and all that in 1992? Yeah. So that was a whole thing, right? Virgin made a Cool Spot and a couple other like weird games. They'd pick up licensed stuff and put it out. So they shifted and made the Lands of Lore series, which is kind of a spiritual successor to the Eye of the Beholder stuff, but without the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons license. So they basically took their tech and took all the knowledge, everything they learned by making these other games. They said, "All right, we're gonna make a new series because we don't have a license to work with anymore." So I thought that was kind of interesting. A little backstory, right? This is a Dungeons and Dragons title, an advanced D&D second edition title, which is important because D&D has gone through many iterations, right? They're on AD&D version 5e. And basically what that means is they update the rule books and the core rule set, right? So that means like the way you play is kind of different. They'll add different types of combat rules and whatever else. They'll add new weapons, spells, armor to like the basic core set. They'll add new character classes, races, and they'll tweak a bunch of stuff, right? So that's kind of important to note because it bases all of that stuff off of the AD&D second edition rules and modifies them to work in a video game or PC game setting, right? So this is within the Forgotten Realms. It's a very famous fantasy land inside AD&D. There's been, I think, over 20 or 30 games at least that take place in the Forgotten Realms. Probably the most popular lands in Dungeons and Dragons is the Forgotten Realms. So a place called Waterdeep, which if anybody's played D&D, Waterdeep, I believe, is the biggest city in the Forgotten Realms on the other Sword Coast. And the first game takes place underneath the main city. So essentially how the story goes is you're contracted by the Lords of Waterdeep to go investigate under the sewers and figure out where the evil is coming from, right? Once you get down in there, though, a giant collapse happens by the evil being that is underneath the city, and you basically have to make your way to the exit because you can't go back. So that's how that works, right? And then, spoilers, you beat Xanathar. He is the evil in the first one, who's a giant beholder, right? And I believe he's not a new creation. I believe he's part of the D&D lore. Part 2, right? So you get back to town, you get out, right? And you're having beers in the tavern or whatever. Everyone knows, or you're telling everybody, hey, we did this great thing or whatever. And then somebody contacts you, this guy, Kelvin Blackstaff, Arunson. And he says, hey, I heard what you guys did. I have another quest for you. There's this Dark Moon Temple, which is really ominous, and they're doing some shit over there. And I need you to go investigate and figure out what's going on. So this one puts you in a completely different area. Start off outside, where part 1 was all like indoors. Part 2 is outside, or it starts off outside in the forest, and you're in like a forest with a graveyard and whatever. And you make your way to the temple. You find some people who you think are friendly. They turn out to not be friendly. And then you're on your way and you're trapped inside the tower. And then you basically have to find this guy called Dran Dragor. He is the evil baddie in part 2. So this is expanded even more, right? They added a bunch of new areas, a lot of new environments, a lot of new weapons, armor, all this stuff. Really a bigger version of the original, right? And then part 3 is kind of the same in part 2, right? You go back to town, you're having a beer, somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I've heard about your past successes, taking down Dran, taking down Xanathar. I have another quest for you if you guys want it, which you need to go to Myth Draenor, and you need to destroy this lich named Aswellin, I think is how you pronounce that name." And you go on another adventure in the same universe, just in a different area. And that's essentially the plot structure of the first 3 games. You can play them in any order if you want. If you pick up like part 3 and you create new characters, you'll have characters who are leveled up as if you've played part 1 and part 2, right? Because if you play part 1, your characters start at level 1. You play part 3, they start at like level, I don't know, 8, 9, or 10 or whatever. So they're like kind of beefed up in that way, which is kind of neat. But like in terms of the gameplay, I don't know if you've ever played, because I know you're not a big RPG guy, right? That's not necessarily your jam.
No.
Have you played any dungeon crawlers at all? Anything like Dungeon Master? Or,
no. That's not my type of game.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
Not.
Okay. So essentially, what it is you're in this dungeon, this pseudo 3D dungeon. You can go forward, back. You can strafe left, strafe right, and you can turn left, turn right. So every square is like, you move forward 1 square. So everything is like gridded out, right? So if you were to look at like a map of this, you would see like, okay, here's 3 squares, right? Which is like 3 sections. So you'd move like 3 steps forward and all that. So it's easy to map out if you need to map it out and whatnot. And combat works. Your characters have 2 hands. So whatever you have in your hand, if you can utilize it, if it's like a knife, you would throw the knife if you click on it. If it's a sword, you'll swing the sword.
I love it how you said they have 2 hands. Like, is that like not normal to have 2 hands?
Well, it's not necessarily like some RPGs will just be like weapon and here's your weapon, and shield slot and here's your shield slot. So the fact that it's 2 hands means that you could do like a dual wield, right? If you wanted 2 axes and you had a character class that could utilize 2 weapons in that way, you could do that, right? So instead of having a sword and shield, which is a little more traditional, you could do 2 swords or a sword and an axe or whatever, right? If it fit within the D&D rules and the whatever else. So yeah, and you could also put things like rocks in your hand, or you could do wands, you could do spell books if you have like a mage or a priest or whatever, or a cleric, right? So depending on what your character class is, right? Paladins are kind of a fighter and a magic user, so they would typically have like a paladin's holy seal and like maybe a mace or a sword or whatever. So, but yeah, I guess I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, right? Because you have to build your party, right? So you create 4 characters. If you don't want to do that, they have a preset party, but that's not fun. You want to make your own characters. And there's six classes, right? Fighter, ranger, paladin, thief, mage, and cleric, which I think are the 6 base character classes that you can be in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And I think there may have been modules and other stuff that kind of expanded it out. Now in like version 5 or 6 or whatever, or 5e, there's like 12 or 13 different classes you can be. So they've expanded it out a bit. You can multi-class, right? If you want a guy who's a fighter and a thief, you could do that. If you want a guy who's a mage and a cleric, you could do that. As long as it fits within the rules, right? Because you make a character, you need a race, and certain races can only be certain classes, right? Only humans can be paladins and whatever else. So it
That's
adds some.
racist.
Well, actually, you know what? It's very funny you said that because they did away with a lot of the racial bonuses and penalties that certain races had, and like character restrictions. So that's actually gone in like 5e. You can
Okay.
you can be any character class you want. So it's actually funny you mentioned that. But yeah, so you basically have to make your way down 12 floors in the first game, down to the bottom to beat Xanathar. There are NPCs. You can pick up other characters in your party and add them to your party, so you can be a party of 6. And you can find, thieves and mages and whatever else. And there are more than like 2 extra. There's like 5 or 6 different NPCs. So you have to make a choice. Sometimes you got to drop characters because this one's better, and you're like, I'll pick up this guy or whatever. You can die very easily, and it's hard to, especially in the first game, it's hard to bring your character back to life because there's only so many ways to do it. One of them is via the Raise Dead spell, which you don't get to level 5. Well, I'm sorry, which is a 5th level spell, and you don't get till the like end of the game. So there's a couple of like altars you can put your dead bones at and revive, and then there's also a cleric somewhere in the game in like level 5 or whatever that can do it. But if you're at a point where you can't like heal somebody or you can't revive them, you got to go all the way back. In some cases, you'll have to restart the whole entire game. So can be a little tough, but you can save anywhere, so that's actually kind of nice. One thing that I thought was like really neat is you can take your characters from 1 to 2 to 3. If you have a save slot, and then you from the first game, and you go into part 2, there's a character import option on the main menu, and you can choose 4 out of your 6 party members, and then bring them into the next game, and they'll retain their experience, most of their spells, and I'd say like 75 to 80% of their items. Some stuff they're like, well, you can't have this because it's game breaking, or you can't have this because it's not used in part 2, right? It's a special item in the first game or whatever. So certain things don't carry over, but most of it does, which I thought was kind of cool. So I made it all the way to the 3rd game. I'm in the middle of the 3rd game now, and I have my party that started all the way back underneath Waterdeep, and taking them to the end. So they are seasoned veterans right now, and the gameplay is essentially exploration, right? Figure out where you are in the dungeon, map it out, solve some puzzles if they come up. If there's like a pressure plate you got to open, or a door that can't get opened, or maybe you got to find a key or whatever else, and combat. And like I kind of mentioned before, combat is you utilize the items that are in your frontline guys' hands, axes, swords, throwing daggers, rocks, whatever. And your guys in the back, if they have magic, hopefully they're magic users in the back row, then they can utilize magic. And, you use that to fight enemies, and then you can kind of like move around to avoid their hits. So it's like action combat on like a grid. So it's like kind of cool, and it was all the rage at the time, right? And it's actually funny because I mentioned Dungeon Master before, which is one of the first dungeon crawlers, maybe not the first. It's the first one I ever played. And Dungeon Master and Eye of the Beholder, if you put them side by side, they're very similar, right? You got 4 characters, you got the 2 hand slots, right? You move around in a grid. There's there's fighters and magic users and whatever else. Everything happens in kind of the dungeon. So when you throw a knife, it goes down the hallway, like every like grid spot. If you fire a weapon, or if you fire a magic spell like a fireball, it travels down the hallway, right? So, but this is like a, not to say Dungeon Master was Dungeon Master was great. Eye of the Beholder is better graphics, better sound, more variety in character options, bigger world to play through, more variety in the graphics, right? So They really kind of like took what that did well and kind of expanded upon it, which I thought was kind of cool. But I mean, like, you know, in terms of the graphics, every couple of levels they'll like change up the tile set, the wall patterns, right? So you'll start off in like the red brick sewers, and then you get down into like there's like a whole dwarven clan, which is all like made of stone down there, and there's dwarven runes on the wall, which is really cool. You go through like Spider's Nest, you go into the Drow lair, then you keep going down until you get down to the final area, which is this like really kind of ornate pink and white. Yeah, it looks like an underground castle type thing. That's where Xanathar is. So they do a good job of like kind of making it varied. Right. The one thing I'll say, now the character portraits, they vary, but they're mostly pretty good. You can choose your character portrait, right? There's a ton of different character portraits. The NPCs, they just don't look quite right. I don't know. I think they had a different artist work on the NPCs. They're not my favorite portraits. I'll say that. When you get to part 2, they kind of, like I said before, they varied up a little bit. They start you outside, which was revelatory, because both Dungeon Master and Eye of the Beholder, the first one, you're always in the dungeon, so it's like, woof, right? It can feel a little claustrophobic when you understand that you just keep going further and further into this dungeon, right? Which probably smells terrible, right? And then like part 2, once you get in the castle or the tower, the temple, you go down into the catacombs. That's a whole thing, and then you go up into the different towers, and every tower is like slightly different until you meet Dran. And then part 3 is even more outdoor areas. You start off in a huge like graveyard, and you make your way through this like forest glen, and then you make it up into the tower, which is separated into slightly different areas. So they did a good job from like game to game, making it feel different, which you know, it goes a long way. But one thing I'll note is because part 3 wasn't made by Westwood. It was made internally by SSI. They ported the engine over to like a new engine, and they ported a lot of the assets and graphics. So a lot of stuff that gets reused, but they did make a lot of new stuff, and it wasn't quite as good as the first 2. Funny enough, even though coming out like 3 years after the first one, it was kind of considered a little bit of a cash grab, even though it was kind of meant to be a 3-part series all along. Westwood did want to work on it, but they got bought out. So there's nothing you can do. You're not going to work for the competition at that point. So, yeah, I mean, it's still good. I still like it, but people tend to be a little bit harsh on it. If you kind of look at reviews online, and yeah. As far as the sound goes, there's not much to say. There's not much to say. When you think of a video game, Dan, you think, well, it's got to have a soundtrack, right? Unless it's like an Atari game.
If I think about RPG, I think half the game is the soundtrack.
Exactly. Parts 1 and 2, besides the character creation and the intro cinematic, essentially have no music. Yeah. So you're walking through a dank and somewhat desolate dungeon.
It has wait. It has nothing at all.
No. There'll be some like music stings, but they happen for like a second or two.
Okay, what about sound effects? I mean, as you're going through the dungeon, do you at least hear like the water or drips or the steps? Like, do you hear the sound effects?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can definitely hear monsters that are in other parts of the dungeon if you're like close by. You can hear them like walking and stepping, and every time you step.
That's one of my favorite PC games, which I always fuck up the name, and I know because it's been 40 years, but Corridor 7?
Corridor 7, that's right, Corridor 7.
Yeah, Corridor 7. I can hear them far away, and I can hear the door open and all that. Yeah, okay. I understand.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like Doom and Wolfenstein and those games in Corridor 7 took inspiration from these games, because even though there's no music, the sound effects are still like super creepy, right? Because you're like, I don't know where I am. Got to figure this out. Who is around the corner? Now, just as a quick aside again, I did mention at the top of the show that the Sega CD version and the PC 98 had music by Yuzo Koshiro, and that plays throughout the entire game. And this is just for the first Eye of the Beholder. They never ported part 2 and 3 to Super Nintendo or Sega CD or whatever. So just like the first one. So it's kind of a, it's a big difference having a full soundtrack just going. But anyway, and I'll say, I mean, they nailed it. If you're a D&D fan, you love RPGs, they really nailed the feel as best they could of Dungeons and Dragons. Now, you don't get a lot of role playing necessarily. There is some NPC character interaction. You do have some options. What you want to do? You want to help these people or not? You want to kill these people or not? You could do some stuff like that, but it's kind of limited, and that's basically because of the technology at the time and really just gameplay differences in general, right? D&D is meant to be played over multiple sessions, right? On a game board. Half the game is role playing and storytelling and all that. So, but they did a really great job. I think they really captured the essence of it. So that's like super cool. And two things that were kind of, I guess, a product of its time maybe is there is no map, there is no auto map. So you can't just hit the tab button or caps lock or space or whatever and pull up a map. You got to either get maps online or you have to grid it out yourself. Well, no, I take that back. I believe it came with an included map that had like the first couple levels to get you started, and then you were on your own, and they gave you some highlights of where to look and check out here and whatever. So, yeah. And then the other thing is you could totally like soft lock yourself out of beating the game. I think in the first one, I think you were always able to beat it. So if because there's like key items that you may need way later in the game that you get close to the beginning of the game, right? It could be a key or an orb or whatever. And if you don't take it or don't find it or drop it or whatever, you lose it in some way, you have to go all the way back, get it, and then go all the way back to where that thing is, and then get past that door or pit or whatever it is. So, but I did soft lock myself in part 2. You can do that, and I believe in part 3 you can do that too. So you got to be very careful. They added more save slots in part 2 and 3, so you want to keep cycling through your save slots. Always have a backup save often, right? But yeah, and I will say, this game definitely holds up today, Dan. Surprisingly, but with the caveat, you need to read the manual because there's a lot of stuff that you could kind of figure it out, but the manual helps a lot. There's a lot of tables and charts and whatever, and they tell you what the racial advantages of the different races are, what character classes they could be, what their primary stat is, and what you should look for when you're rolling your character. Right? You don't want a fighter with 2 strength because that's just not going to do. Well. They give you all the spells, what they do. Otherwise, you kind of got to figure it out and try on your own. It makes it a little bit difficult, but yeah, definitely check this game out if you're a fan of RPGs. If you like, if you like kind of old school dungeon crawlers, or you want to get into old school dungeon crawlers, this is definitely high on the list of games. And you can actually get it. It's on if you want to get it digitally, you can get it from Good Old Games like I did. I think $10 or whatever will get you the trilogy, which I think is a really good price. So yeah, and
wait,
a little.
You can get these games individually though, right?
I believe you can buy them individually too, but yeah. I mean, if you want to try them, but I think they're $4 or $5 individually, so it's not that much more to get the 3-pack. Because I think if you're interested in the game genre itself, you'll be interested in playing all 3 of them, I think. But yeah, I mean, totally, you can get them separate if you want. And I had to do some digging, right? Because this is an old game. This is pre-Metacritic, so there was no Metacritic scores. But I looked up some PC reviews, and I found some, the best of the best from CVG, Computer and Video Games magazine. from back in the day gave it a 96%. And 5 out of 5 stars from Dragon Magazine, which I believe was a D&D magazine. And the worst I could find, which is still pretty good, was a 3 out of 5 from All Game, which is a site that I've never heard of and I believe is now defunct. They gave it a 3 out of 5. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. But I think in general, people were pretty high on this series. I think, personally, I will say Part 2 is the best of them. Part 3 definitely the weakest of the series. And I think it goes Part 2 on top, Part 1, and then Part 3 at the bottom. Also notably, IGN ranked Eye of the Beholder number 8 on their list of top 11 Dungeons and Dragons games of all time in 2014. And
okay, that's a weird number, like top 11, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, you would think you'd do top 12, right? If
Or
anything,
10.
like top 11.
Nice, 10 or 12. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, 10, 12, or even 20. I could say 20, right? Like,
right.
Like top 11, like were there for them to have a top 11 were there only 14 games?
No,
right? 'Cause you gotta leave some games out.
No, actually, in 2014, there was at least 50, if not close to 100, maybe licensed D&D products at that time. By the time Eye of the Beholder came out, they had there was the Gold Box series. They had like a lot of D&D products through the 80s and 90s. I mean, they kept turning it out.
I'm just saying top 11.
Yeah, it's
right?
weird.
Like,
it's weird.
So for you to have a weird number, obviously there needs to be more than 11 for it to be the top 11. Because if that's because then you would just be rating. All right, we're gonna rank all the D&D style games.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So they had to be more than 11.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
So it's like, why don't the number one? How about if you're put it this way, if you're number 11 on this list, you're like, then why am I even on this list? It's just
exactly. Oh, so I am the worst.
Yeah. Just be top 10. Doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
But Dave, it doesn't matter what IGN thinks. It doesn't matter what CVG thinks. It doesn't even matter what All Game thinks. Dave, what would you rank it?
I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Wow. Okay.
It's a couple points knocked off for the lack of auto map, and it gets a couple points knocked off for the fact that the manual is kind of necessary to get you into the game. Thankfully, I remember playing the game from back in the day, so the mechanics were pretty good. And there's also copious walkthroughs online, which helped me get through some of the parts that I forgot about. So
okay, all right. Well, it's not a game or trilogy that I would. And remember, you need to rank this. You need to rank the trilogy, not in each individual.
Yeah.
What would you give, as a side note, what would you give each individual game if you had to give each individual game a score? To collectively give it an 8.5, and I'm sure it lost points because of Part 3, which you put last, but what would you give every game?
Let's see. Part 1. Part 1's like 8.5. Part 2 is like 9.5. And Part 3 is like 7.5 or 8. Maybe.
Okay. So,
it's still good.
So
Part 3 is still good. I still like it.
So Part 3 brought the average down, right? It brought it down because you went from 8.5 to 9.5.
Oh yeah, no. Part 2 was amazing. Yeah.
And if Part 3 was anything like Part 2, right? And you probably would have gave it a solid 9.
Yeah. It had a very weak end boss.
Part 3 brought it down. Okay.
Oh, there's one more thing I forgot to mention, Dan. Right before the show, I was looking up on YouTube, and because I was looking up the Eye of the Beholder soundtrack and all that, and looking up the Yuzo Koshiro stuff, I got a recommended video, and it said Eye of the Beholder Commodore 64, and I'm like, no. So apparently, somebody has been painstakingly working on a port to the Commodore 64, a complete version of the first Eye of the Beholder with an auto map. So
Ooh.
technically, it is a better version, right? Obviously, the graphics aren't quite as good. It's got the Commodore 64 color palette and all that, but technically a better game. Now, I mentioned you could get the digital copy for $10 and the whatever else. And you were saying, how do you get the game individually? Well, it did come out physically, right? It was physical back in the day on diskettes or the trilogy on a single CD. So I did look it up. On eBay, you can get original copies, complete in box in various conditions for like $30 to $60 individually. Or I found a very questionable copy of it sealed of the trilogy for $54.95. Seems a little bit high given the condition, but it is what it is. So, yeah. So, all right.
I'm always skeptical about getting something sealed because no one's ever opened it, and what if you drop it and it bursts open and you got a brick, right?
Well, it could be. Yeah. That's why I never
That's
buy.
why I don't like getting. That's why I don't like getting sealed copies.
That's right. That's why you always have somebody open it up in front of you if you're unsure of what's inside.
All right. Thanks for putting me on the eye of the beholder. Again, not something, not a game I would try. I did see it on the SNES. I almost picked it up. It is about $30 on the SNES. I don't know if it's the trilogy or if not just the first one.
It is. Yeah, they didn't port parts 2 and 3, so it's just the first one. But it's a pretty good port.
But then I took a look at it and I said, not something that I would play.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if it was less than if it was like $5, I probably would have picked it up. But I wasn't gonna pay $30.
All right.
All right. Before I get into Jak and Daxter, I just want to say something that came earlier in the game with my pickups. I didn't realize. All right. So the King of Fighters been around for a long time.
Yeah. All right.
Right. The King of Fighters 12, the one that I have for the 360, was made by Ignition Entertainment. All right. SNK Ignition. And the one that people claim is maybe in contender at least, arguably the best fighting game of all time, which is King of Fighters 13, made by Atlas. It came out on PS3.
Oh shoot! All right, that's awesome.
So just as a side note, I didn't realize that. I was like putting them away as we were talking. I was like putting them to the side, and I didn't realize they were made by two different companies.
Yeah, weird. Yeah.
All right, Dave, let me jump into Jak and Daxter. Let me tag in.
All right.
So I got to play Jak and Daxter, the precursor legacy, right? I played it a little bit, not when it came out. I definitely didn't play when it came out. I played a little bit when I started collecting, but I never really got into it until I knew I was going to do it for Ceremony Retro for September.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I'm going in it. I think I played a little bit of 2 or 3. I didn't play all 3. I know I didn't play all 3. I played a little bit of either 2 or 3, which I don't know which one it was. But I played a little bit of the successor, but I didn't really get into it, so I can't tell you any of the major differences. So again, I have no nostalgia for this franchise. I have nothing going in. I'm going in blind. Okay, I know it exists. I know people love it or loved it back in the day. So I'm going in blind with a fresh set of eyes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So my opinion is only of the original game.
Yep.
Not, I'm not looking back playing, again, 2 and 3. I know I did play Jak X, which was the racing game.
Yeah.
Which story-wise is a continuation of the trilogy, but totally different gameplay. So I'm going in, again, not really knowing the story, to be honest. I guess I know what ultimately happens. The bad guy loses.
All right.
And even in death, he does set everybody up. And you can go back and listen to episode 24 if you want to hear my, sort of semi-review of Jak X. But Jak and Daxter, the precursor legacy, came out in North America December 3rd, 2001, which was kind of weird that it was a December game, right? Even back then, right? A lot of big name games usually didn't come out in December. Not until, recently, recent times. It was developed by Naughty Dog, published by Sony. It came out in a PS2. A 3D platformer of its time. And I played this on the PS2 Slim and PlayStation Plus Premium on my PS5. So I did sort of jump back and forth between them two. And the one in the PS5, honestly, is just a port of the PS2 version. I couldn't see or didn't notice anything that was changed. So if
Okay.
there is something that's changed, I didn't notice it. Okay.
Right. All right. That's
Throw that out.
that's usually a good thing, right?
So after Naughty Dog made the Crash series 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
However, they didn't own Crash Bandicoot, even though we all think of that as Sony's mascot, which is kind of weird that it's owned by Microsoft now, or will be owned by Microsoft. They worked on the Crash trilogy, but Crash was owned by Universal Interactive, which was then turned into Vivendi, which then got bought out by Activision, which is now being bought by Microsoft, and that's how that connection goes.
Yep.
So the project was originally called, this game was originally called Project Y, and while most of the original Naughty Dog team was working on Crash Team Racing, a small team started Jak and Daxter, and then when Crash Team Racing was done, they sort of all migrated to work on this game. They know they wanted to do like an animal morphic character, and they nicknamed him Boxman. They didn't know what they wanted to do, but they did want.
Boxman.
It was
Wow,
called
okay.
Boxman originally, and they wanted
Interesting.
Sony, and they knew, again, they didn't want to work on another Crash game just because they didn't own it. Okay, so they wanted to cut out the middleman, and now that Sony owned Naughty Dog, they wanted to just create a new character and work on the new console that's going to come out, right? The PS2. So this was Naughty Dog's first foray into 3D open world game, which they did a great job with. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty impressive. I think what really made this game stand out are sort of the cutscenes, right? And they had a lot of animators come from outside the video game industry, like Disney and Nickelodeon, to work on these, to work on the game. And they have collectively 45, I think it was like 45 minutes worth of cutscenes collectively if you put them all together.
Wow.
Right?
All right.
So and it was pretty high quality, at least for the time. And it looked fantastic. I'm not gonna lie, it looked fantastic. And the story is sort of a simple story, and I love the fact that they didn't go the route of damsel in distress and you got to rescue, right?
Yeah.
That is sort of the time, and this is where, and I think this was early 2000s. We're starting to get away from that, right? We still had games where we still had to rescue somebody, rescue the princess, rescue the girlfriend, but we started to trickle away to get away from the damsel in distress.
Right.
And it starts out with Jak and Daxter being really good friends, and they were told not to go to this forbidden island called Misty Island, and they end up doing it anyway because, of course, when someone tells you not to do something, you do it anyway.
You gotta do it. Yeah.
And Daxter accidentally falls into a pool of dark eco. You don't know what eco is really at this point, but he falls into dark eco, which is bad because it's dark.
It's not the Sony PS2 game that came out earlier that year, Eco?
No.
Dark
No,
Eco?
no.
Okay.
No. And then it ultimately transforms him into sort of like an otter, weasel type character. And obviously he's ecstatic and he's going crazy, and it's like, why am I turned into like a little animal? He's like, I know they're kind of anthropomorphic animals anyway, but now he's turned into like Rocket Raccoon from the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he does a lot of talking. Jak is a silent protagonist, and Daxter does all the talking, and he talks a lot. He does talk a lot.
He's like the comic relief, right? That's the
He's the comic relief, but he's everything. He's the comic relief, and he directs you too. If you are in an area and you don't know what you're doing, and after a while, Daxter say, "I think we need to go and do this. I think we need to go here." Right? So again, at first when I was playing this game, I was playing it sort of on mute, listen to podcasts. You can listen to any type of podcast, especially Rated G for gamers. but then you get lost, and I turn the value on, and I'm like, and he's like, I think we need to go back to the hut. We have enough orbs, right? Which I'll talk about orbs in a second, but he
Mm-hmm.
does direct you throughout the game. When you sort of lost, which is sort of the precursor to like Naughty Dog, where if like Ellie will say, I think we need to go here, right? So
Right.
if you're playing
Right.
like The Last of Us. So it brought me back since I just beat, The Last of Us. It brought me back to that when it was like, oh, okay. Okay. I know I'm sure the
Mm-hmm.
developers I'm sure all these developers aren't really there anymore, but the essence of what they did is still there.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
but the whole game, it's Jak and Daxter. They have to find a way to turn Daxter back normal, back into a real, not person, but a person of the game, and not
Mm-hmm.
a otter.
Yeah. 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 Humanoid, I guess.
Humanoid. There we go. That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the word. Yeah. Gameplay is pretty much simple. I mean, it's a 3D platformer. And 3D platformers of that time, it's a collectathon, and you need to collect certain items to progress to the next level. And you need the main collectible in the game are power cells. And you can only get power cells by defeating a boss, doing odd jobs for like villagers around the town, right? And trading precursor orbs, which are the golden eggs that act as currency, like in Super Mario coins in Super Mario.
Uh-huh.
So, but here's the catch: you need to trade a lot of them, a lot. They don't want 5 or 10; they want like 90. Okay, I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you I'll give you a power cell if you give me 90 orbs, right? So orbs are just spread out all around, and you think they do nothing, but now you have incentive to collect all of them, especially when they're just scattered all around in there, and you see a whole bunch that are high
Mm-hmm.
up on a platform, and you're trying to figure out how the hell do I get up there.
Right.
So that's half the game right there, is just collecting things. Um, you control Jack, you don't control Daxter, which is kind of a bummer, but I don't know if they changed that in later games. That's why I said I'm coming in this sort of with a fresh set of eyes, because I didn't play 2 or 3, so I have nothing to compare it to, and I'm not comparing anything because I'm just going to judge it on its own merits.
Well, there
Um,
was a PSP game that was just Daxter, I think, if
yes,
I'm
and it
not
was called
mistaken.
Daxter. It
Yeah.
was called
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I don't know if 2 and 3 you can swap between them because again I've only played the first one too. So
I don't think you can swap between them just because Daxter, Jack is like a normal size humanoid for the time for the game, and, and,
right,
and
right,
Daxter is like a quarter of his size. And he sits on your shoulder as your
right,
sidekick.
right, right.
So it makes no sense to sort of switch between them, because then it's not like Jack can sit on Daxter's shoulder, right?
Right.
You'll just be running
Right.
behind him, and then you might as well just have a co-op game if that's the case. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
as Ratchet and Clank has his own game on the PSP as well,
That's right.
called
That's right.
Clank. So that was, they had the sidekick games on the PSP.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but Jack's main controls are you can double jump, even though there are sections where you're like in a river jumping over logs and you can't double jump, which doesn't make any sense because why can't I double jump here, but I can double jump everywhere else? Minor
Right.
complaint, nothing
Right.
big. You can butt stomp, which you have to open up sort of metal boxes. You can like punch, and you can punch regular boxes to open those up. But if it's like a metal box, you have to do a butt stomp. And the main thing that you will be doing is a spin attack, which they actually took from Crash Bandicoot.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So yeah, everything in the game, again, it's the power cells, the precursor orbs. But as I said in my Jack X sort of semi review, everything is eco, right? The dark eco turned Daxter into like a little weasel, furry weasel otter character, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not all eco is bad. So you have red eco, which can increase your attack ability. You have
Mm-hmm.
yellow eco that gives you the ability to spit fire. Well, you're not really spitting fire. As you punch, you throw fireballs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have blue eco, which gives you the ability to run faster, power up certain platforms. Remember, I said you've seen all these orbs up high up on the level, and you're trying to figure out how to get there. Right?
Right.
There's probably some blue eco, which is a limited time thing. It looks like lightning,
Mm-hmm.
and right, like you have to light yourself up and figure out a way to get to a platform, activate a platform before that runs out, before the blue eco runs out, and it can
I
help
see.
you open up closed doors to get you to the other areas of the level.
Right. So there's a little bit of like puzzle solving going on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Then you have green eco, which heals you. You need to get at least 50 of them to replenish one extra hit point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most impressive thing about this game is the load times, or should I say, lack thereof. It is
Oh.
so impressive for a game of the time, 2001, where you can switch to an area, go around the whole area, and not have any load times. And I'm not gonna, because I know if a young kid or a younger person is reviewing this game or playing this game now, they won't appreciate that. I know the games of the time,
Yeah.
so me going back and doing this, I can appreciate the lack of no loading screens
Yeah. Oh,
when
that's
you're
wild.
going around the level, right?
I didn't remember that, but I mean that's good on them for being able to do that. And early in the life cycle too, right? That was,
2001, yeah.
yeah,
Gosh, I
yeah, it
mean,
was
when did the PS2 come out? In 2001?
September 2000. So it was out for
About a
over a
year.
year, but
About a year.
still, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And also, which again, this is something that I can appreciate because I'm a gamer of that time period. The draw distance is impressive, where you could just
Yeah.
go on top of, go on top of a hill and just take a look, and you can look at other levels, because it's sort of world based. Like I'm on this land and I have to get to that land, and you can
Mhm.
see that land and far away, and you can see all of the land behind you, right? Like that's like impressive if you're coming from like the N64 era,
Right.
right?
Oh
You're
yeah, where
playing
there's
a
like
64
zero
game.
draw distance. Yeah,
There's no draw distance. It's
yeah.
cloudy and bland. They make it cloudy so you can't see because you couldn't see, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. They put in the purposeful fog. Yeah.
yeah. Sound wise, the sound effects are good. Are exquisite, on point, fit the game just like you would think it would. Because all the Crash games, sound effects wise, were superb. Music is good, is really good actually, but there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing memorable. Nothing memorable that stands out. You're not going to be singing the theme song, or any level or any song to any level after you're done with this game. I
Okay.
don't want to. I don't want to say it's forgettable, but it is kind of forgettable. It's just not. It's not bad, if you know what I mean, right? It's not bad, but it's not great. It's not going to win any award
Sure.
for the
You
sound.
wouldn't listen to it maybe outside of playing the game, but
No,
it's good in the
no.
game. Yeah.
It fits the game, but it's not great where you want to listen to it
Mm-hmm.
outside the game. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the thing that really got me excited about playing Jak and Daxter, which is the whole reason why I wanted to play it, is to get into the story. Right, this is
Mm-hmm.
one of Sony's big franchises of the PS2 era, and I've never played them.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I never got into it. I never really gave it any time at all.
Right.
And I definitely I really want to play 2 because people, I've heard people say 2 is maybe the best. So I don't want to get into 2 unless I play some of 1 at least, and I
Mm-hmm.
definitely wanted to do it for Saturday Morning Retro. I want to say the biggest issue I had with this game is the camera control. And
Oh,
it's better than a lot of other games. Don't get me
right.
wrong. It's better than a lot of other games of the time. But the issue is, when you want to look left, so you turn the stick left, and
Mm-hmm.
the camera will turn left. It's the opposite. You hit left, it goes right. You hit
Yep.
right, it goes left.
I remember this. Yeah, it's got like inverted horizontal control, which is wild to think about. And if I remember correctly, there's not a way to flip it in the options, or is there?
So I will say this: I sort of checked on the PS2. I didn't see it. I apologize if I missed it. All right, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if I did miss it, please like hit us up online. Let me know. Hey, Dan, you missed it. It's in the controls. But I didn't check on the PS5 just because if they fixed it, then I'm not playing the game the way it originally came out, and that's how
Oh,
I wanted to play it. Especially because I knew I was jumping back and forth because my
yeah, yeah.
PS5 is downstairs, and well, I know I'm using the digital PS5 upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my PS2 Slim downstairs, and I don't want to get used to playing it on the PS5, and then I come down and play on the PS2, and it's like frustrating because I got so used to fixing it. So I was like, I didn't look to see if they fixed it
Mm-hmm.
on the PS5. I will actually check. I can't imagine that they didn't, but maybe they didn't. But no, I've been playing it the way it originally, was set, and
Sure.
it was a little frustrating, but then I got used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I got used to it. At
Yeah,
least I don't have to.
you do.
At least I don't have to use the buttons as direction, right? Like
Oh
you did
yeah.
back in the PS1 and Dreamcast
And
era,
the
right?
and
Like
then and N64 almost noted
N64,
they
yeah,
had C stick, they had camera stick buttons, which
yeah,
is wild.
yeah. Does this game hold up today? I would say yes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need to get used to the inverted camera control.
Mm-hmm.
Just for left and right. It's just for left and right. You can control it just like you could control a game now, except for if you want to look left, hit right. I don't know. Again, I don't know if they fixed it in the PS5 or the PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Plus Premium version. If they
Mm-hmm.
did, then you can always change it. But I don't think it's that egregious to where you can't get used to it and play the game.
Yeah.
I think it's really
Yeah.
tough to use that C directional pad
Right. Right.
on N64. Like that's tough to go back to. There are a lot of games I would like to play in the Dreamcast that sort of would be considered twin stick shooters, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are just really tough to play because there are no twin sticks. Um, but I don't think that would be the case in this game. So I think it does stand up if you can get only if you can get used to the inverted left and right controls.
Mm. Okay.
Uh, this game did come out during the Metacritic era.
Uh-huh.
Again, the only platform it came out on, the PS2 at the time. It was remastered or ported to the PS4, by the way, as a side note, so you can get the PS4 version, which is why it's on the PlayStation Plus Premium
Mm-hmm.
package. It is the PS4 version. Um, Metacritic wise, at the time, it got a 90 and an 89 user score. There were 35 positive reviews and 0 negative.
Ah, there you
Uh,
go.
it got a perfect score, a 100 from
Universally
PlayStation
loved.
Magazine
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and the lowest score I should say, I found was 75 from Game Critics, which again, a site I never knew existed, or a
Same.
publication I never knew existed, and I cannot find that article online. They did say it is Daxter who gives the game its flavor more than the relatively anonymous Jak. The flavor
Mm-hmm.
is ultimately what sets Jak and Daxter apart from a lot of other platforming games out there. But Dave, that's not the most important score.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. PlayStation Magazine gave it a perfect score. It doesn't matter that Game Critics gave it a 75.
Tell us, Rock. Tell us, Rock. It doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
No, no. What we want to know here on the Saturday Morning Retro episode is, what does Dan give this game? What is your score, Dan?
I give this game
Mm-hmm.
a solid 8.
Hey, all right. All right.
I say give it a solid 8. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
The game's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
great game.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I think again, I don't know if they did this in 2 or 3. I think they could do a little bit more than than collect. And again, it's a collectathon kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That when you get into collecting too many things, that takes me out a little bit, just a little bit. And
Yeah.
I wish Daxter could do more, a little more, something more important.
Sure. Than just
A
like the
little bit.
comic relief. Yeah.
Yeah, because look, if you look at Ratchet and Clank games, Clank had he had a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you couldn't fly without him, or
Right.
glide
Right.
without him. You could
Mm-hmm.
double jump, but you can't glide or fly without him. So I wish Daxter had another feature, another function, or an added function, And I don't know if they did that in subsequent, the follow-up games, which I will see.
That may be maybe another game for another Saturday morning retro episode. All right.
So if you want to get this game complete right now,
how much?
Lukey does not have it complete. He only has it loose.
Oh,
but
all right.
But I'm a collector, and if you're listening to this, you're probably a collector too. So I want to get you a complete copy. And as of this recording, you can get a complete copy on JJ Games, which is back for $12.60.
That is a very reasonable price for a very solid and competent 3D mascot platformer. That's good stuff. $12.60, not bad. So yeah, and it's pretty easy to get. The game did sell really well, so you can get copies out there. Definitely pick it up before it goes up in price, because we all know how that
everything
goes.
Does.
All right. Well, that is episode 25 in the books, folks. And we want to thank you guys for doing all the good stuff that you guys do, for liking, commenting, and all that stuff. If you want to interact with us, and we know that you do, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rated G for Gamers. Also, we are part of the Gaming Podcast Alliance. You can check out all of the fine podcasts featured on there at gamingpodcastalliance.com if you're looking for more gaming goodness. So, please listen, like, rate, review, and subscribe. And as always,
keep gaming.